Hello, here we're talking today about writing one and two-step inequalities. And what we first need to do is make sure with writing inequalities, we know all the different phrases, well not all the different phrases, but that we know a good majority of the phrases that are attached to are less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to symbols. So what I have here for you is a list of words, and you need to go ahead and decide where they go. I'm just going to give you kind of a hint here that some of them are attached with more like when it says is less than or equal to, that a whole phrase obviously goes with less than or equal to, and I would suggest putting a little bullet here. So please go ahead and try and decide where all of those words are going to go. Okay, go ahead and check your answers. Please make sure that you have all the words in the correct spot. A couple of them we might have misread as when it says no more than, you're really thinking of, instead of it saying more than, I know that it goes with greater than, but because it says no, we're really looking for the opposite. All right, so we're going to work on the example number 1. I'm going to do the first couple with you, just so you have an idea of what's going on. And they're asking for us to write an inequality for each of these situations. And they're saying for A that you traveled more than 150 miles yesterday. So you guys can obviously keep looking back at this list if you'd like to help you up here. But with the inequality symbol is the more than symbol, and they didn't specify any type of letter to use. So I'm just going to say I traveled more than, so greater than 150. So 150 is not included in that solution. For B, it says a number n is no more than. Don't skip over that word no. If I'm thinking more than, I'm thinking greater than, but because it says no more than, I actually need to have a less than symbol. And if I can have no more than 18, I can include the 18, so that is included in there. So I will have n is less than or equal to 18. For C, a number n is at most 36. So again, if I go back to my list, at most actually was dealing with less than or equal to. That's a very similar sentence to you can have at most 36 people to your party. So you can only have 36 people or less, really. So that's why it's less than. So go ahead and work out D through H and then come back. Okay, go ahead and check your answers over. Again, these are pretty self-explanatory, pretty basic inequality statements, and they were all they're not even one-step inequalities, it's just writing a basic inequality. What we're going to move into next is actually writing one- and two-step inequalities. So question number 2 says that an airline restricts checked baggage to 80 pounds per person. You pack one 42-pound bag. How much can your second bag weigh? Write and solve an inequality. Now you can write your inequality different ways and still end up getting the same answer. So yours might end up looking slightly different than mine, or your thought process might have been a little different than where I started. All right, so how I'm reading this, they're saying that I can have no more than 80 pounds as my checked baggage. So no more than is meaning less than or equal to. That I can have up to 80 pounds. And then as my first bag, that would be what I don't know, and my second bag is 42 pounds, so my inequality would be x plus 42 less than or equal to 80. Or you could have the 80 on this side, but then you would also need to reverse your inequality symbol. So you treat an inequality just like you would an equation, so I'm going to subtract 42. And I get 38. Okay? Go ahead and try number 3 on your own. All right? So I said the more than doesn't necessarily attach to this word. It's a little tricky in this question, and some people see the word more than and they think addition, but now they're actually talking about an inequality. They gave us a hint to write an inequality, so be careful there that the more than actually states your inequality symbol. All right. So for number 4, they are asking us to write an inequality for each of these situations. We don't have to solve them, just asking us to write them. And the first one says 9 plus 5.5 times a number is more than 50. So again, there's that more than, which we need to be careful with. Okay, so again, more than is stating that we are going to use a greater than symbol. So 9 plus 5.5 times a number is more than 50. The next one says that a lunch special costs $9. The Egyptology Club can spend at most $50. How many lunch specials can they order if they also share a dessert that costs $5.50? So the total that they have is at most $50. So they don't have any more than that, but they do have that. So I'm looking at a less than or equal to. I have to spend less than $50 or equal to that amount. They have a lunch special that costs $9, but they don't know how many they're going to be getting, so that's the 9 times n. And then they're only getting one dessert to share, so that's your constant of the 5 5/10. So I'm looking at 9n plus 5 5/10 is less than or equal to 50. The last one states that you read a 50-page chapter about the early Egyptians at the rate of 5.5 pages per minute. After how many minutes will you have fewer than 9 pages left? So fewer is describing, again, the less than symbol, not the subtraction. If I've read 50 pages, and I'm reading at the rate of 5.5 pages per minute, that per is telling me that that's where my variable is going to go. So I'm going to subtract the amount that I'm reading, which is the 5 5/10 and less than 9. So go ahead on to number 5 and give that one a go by yourself. All right, so for number 5, you can have either 1/2 times y or y divided by 2. But again, they're saying at most, so that means we are looking for a number that is equal to 203 and 56 or less than that. Okay, so question number 6 goes on to say that a magician's assistant makes $10.60 an hour. If he already has saved $53.70, how many hours must he work in order to save at least $165? Now this one really sounds more like a multi-step inequality. So I have to really think about, what am I looking to solve? I want to know how many hours he has to work. So I'm going to say let H equal the number of hours that they have to work. If he makes $10.60 an hour, that sounds like a rate to me. And that sounds like I'd have to do $10.60 times the H. He's already saved $53.70, so I can add that in. And he wants at least $165, so that's going to be a greater than or equal to symbol, and then 165. Go ahead and solve that. Okay, so I solved this by starting by subtracting from both sides, then I divided by the 10 6/10, and I got H is greater than or equal to 10 5/10 hours. So if he works at least 10.5 hours, with the money he's already saved, he will have at least $165. Okay? Moving on. Now that magician's assistant needs to rope off a rectangular, or not a rectangular, but a rectangle for his most famous trick. The length of the rectangle must be exactly 7 5/10 feet, but he has at most 24 feet rope to use. What are the possible widths of the rectangle? They want us to write and solve an inequality. So they're asking for us to be listing the possible widths. That's what we don't know. So that's what we're going to be looking for. We're going to say let W equal the width of the rectangle. Okay? And then I'm thinking about this as if it's a rectangle, I'm going to go ahead and draw myself a picture. And so if I know that the width has to be, I don't know what the width is, I know that if this is a rectangle, that this is the width and this is also the width. And then for the length of the rectangle, they're telling us that it must be exactly 7 5/10 feet. So I'm going to be labeling both of those as 7 5/10. We know that he has at most 24 feet of rope to use, which means he can actually use that 24 feet or less. So I would be going through and finding the perimeter of this rectangle. So adding W plus 7 5/10 plus 7 5/10. At most he has 24 feet, so he has to use less than or 24 feet. So it's I'm using a less than or equal to here. And then I go ahead and combine, and I'll get 2W, and 7 5/10 plus 7 5/10 will give me 15. And then I keep going and solving my inequality. Subtract 15, get 9, then divide both sides by 2, and I'll get W is less than or equal to 4 5/10 feet. So the possible widths of the rectangle are 4.5 feet or less. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you guys on Monday.